Hi, I'm Sanjeev Mathur from Action Coach, and I'd like to welcome you to Business Spotlight, which is our series of interviews with business owners. Um, we love to have these conversations because it helps us promote collective learning in the community. And today I have for you Shovik Majumdar. It's great to have you with us today, Shovik.
Thank you so much for having me. Yeah.
I'm sure our audience would love to learn about your journey, your transition into business, which is pretty interesting, and about your business itself.
Okay.
So, would you like to share something with us?
So my journey has predominantly been a mix of corporate career in consulting and in global captive units. Then into professional services, I was freelancing because that gave me the most learning in the modern world. And as a part of that, I ran my company and then moved back into consulting and moved back into corporate work, where we where it was very easy for me to uh, converge all the learnings into one company. So the companies that I've worked for has always been that kind of companies where I have been able to contribute.
Excellent, excellent. So I'm just wondering, if you go back to when you started out with your business in particular, would you do something differently?
To a great extent, I would do some things differently because I think not only about the business itself, but my own personal self. So, for example, I would certainly have liked to have a couple of additional formal qualifications, whether it was a master's or whether it was in management, because I think it gives you a wider perspective. It gives you an ability to do research. It gives you the ability to problem solve and look at alternate solutions rather than linear thinking. So that is something that I feel would be essential for any business and any entrepreneur. The other thing is, I would have liked to get into a business that had my own ideas, but the kind of ideas that I had for my business were mostly incremental to what existed in the market. Okay, so I think those qualifications would have maybe helped me achieve that.
So that's a great input. I don't often get that, but coming from a person who has experience on both sides of the line, as it were, I think that's really valuable. And it's also something that a lot of people learn a long, long time after they should have done it. And so
Right.
I think this is going to be great advice for some of the younger and newer business people. So as an employer, uh, just wondering what are some of the biggest challenges and learnings that you've had over all these years?
I think the biggest challenges in my career have been the market dynamics. Okay, and I've gone through the boom years of the early 90s,
Hmm.
and then the dot-com bust in 2000. Then when I was working in RBS, we were uh, quite affected by the 2009 to 2013 financial crisis.
Hmm.
That was a massive challenge. And then even now, with the interest rate hikes, with the increase in cost of labor, with companies reducing spending on a continual basis. Those are the challenges, in my view, for a business. And I have been affected by those. And that is fundamentally the reason I use the market dynamics as a focal point, is
Hmm.
because the job of every business or the purpose of every business affect the profitability of a company.
Yeah. So that's fantastic. I just wanted to understand if there are similar issues, challenges, learnings on the people side.
Certainly, I think on the people side, I do face some challenges. I think the labor market that we target and the kind of qualifications that we have always needed uh, has been constrained by the limits that we put. So for example, we want really good English speaking skills. We want as much domain experience as possible.
Mhm.
And we want people who have the ability to contribute. That's one part of it. But then there are other sides to it. I mean, are they motivated
Mm.
to be in a particular industry or in a particular company? Do they have the ability to learn about new things. How quickly do they adapt to changing technologies or changing clients, And because the moment you talk about changing clients, you have to understand the clients in a much better way. So do people try and on their own try and understand a client? Do they do some research about them? Do they find out who the CEO is? For example, what verticals are they in? What have been their revenue? And how can they help us grow even in small steps within those client space or accounts? Okay,
Yeah,
so
I really like what you're saying. I mean, it's you have to have the right people in the right place with the right skills, but most importantly, with the right attitude towards what they need to do.
that's right.
You can't tell everybody every other day that, hey, why didn't you do the research? They've got to do it on their own. They
Yeah,
need to understand.
but I think I have been very fortunate to work with a set of people that so I always use the word work with, okay,
Yeah,
because I think we have been more colleagues than a manager employee or a leader employee or whatever hierarchical term you want to use.
yeah,
But that has predominantly been because I've always worked in matrix organizations where we work with different people.
yeah,
And the matrix changes all the time. So uh, and the leadership changes with the matrix changes. So I think that has been a really nice learning. And I've always found that people have become experts in their domains. And that's fundamentally because either I've inherited those people or I have hired those people, right? Is the way to look at it.
excellent. Thank you so much for that insight. You've been on both sides. Again, I keep coming back to that because it's a fairly unique kind of a thing. But I'd really like to understand, since you would have seen both sides and worked with both mindsets, what are some of the common misconceptions that people have about running a business, and how do you address them?
Right. I think there are some myths that we should certainly look at, and I have faced. So one of them is the fact that there is the idea that one person can take the whole company forward. Okay. And even though the person may be really brilliant and capable, but as you evolve the business, you need different kinds of people. You need a change in attitude, and you need to have the ability to plan your growth for the future. Which means that, for example, if you have got maybe a person who's in HR who's doing the right things today, but are you helping that person to grow for the future? Or do you think that we need a different kind of a capability to support that growth, right? So, and then how do you build a team that is scalable for the future? So that is very important. The
Excellent.
other thing is on the same thought is we cannot be dependent on hierarchies, in the sense that there are people who are at various places in the organization structure that are valuable. Okay, so we need to identify those good spots because often when there is a problem, and I use the word problem because that focuses the discussion. When there's a problem, you go to those people.
Yeah, yeah,
Not be higher up in the organization, but they have been there forever, and they are talented in their own way,
yes.
right? So that is one myth and misconception that I certainly see happening.
Yeah, very interesting. I think team is of course is super critical. It's hard to see how a lot of businessmen try to manage their team. They try to manage their customers. They try to manage the business all on their own,
Yeah.
and it becomes very difficult. But I also love the fact that you brought in aspects of structure. You brought in aspects of the fact that just because you have somebody in a position doesn't mean that you don't need to be engaged with them. And most importantly, where the right people are. Who can get the job done, and that's really important.
That's the quality of a good leader as well, because they can think at multiple levels.
Absolutely. So besides team and besides the market, our market's been growing quite rapidly. What do you attribute your business growth to? Are your levers like marketing, or is it sales, or is it processes? What would you attribute that to?
No, I think it is again a mix of multiple things. I think the first thing I would say is that I had in my early education, I studied in a Catholic school. Not that I'm attributing my growth to the Catholic school,
Yeah.
but interestingly, uh, that school had our fathers and brothers
Yes.
from Australia initially, and then in Hazaribagh, and then in Ahmedabad, they were Spanish fathers. And I think I completely got a different view of education from what maybe the rest of the world was getting in India. And so, because it was very Western, the
Mhm.
thought process was more liberal. We
Mhm.
were allowed to do projects,
Mhm.
and all of that mix of a Western education is something we got here.
Mhm.
Okay. The ability to deal with fairness or unfairness, the ability to question things, I think that is very important. Okay, so that is one thing that certainly uh, made me aware, and it certainly made me more ambitious than maybe what I would have been as coming from a fairly conservative middle class family,
Yeah.
right? Um, the second one I think is I had friends who had good reading habits.
Mhm.
So because they were friends, I had to get into the reading habits.
Mhm.
Okay, so from a very young age, we were good readers. Reading was encouraged. Even as a family, books were a very important part of it. We were asked to read books in multiple languages. And so Bengali is my mother tongue. English, of course, I've been educated in. And Hindi, I had great teachers who were great poets and who inculcated the love of poetry and learning in me. So that was nice. I get a from a corporate world perspective. I think I get a sense of rhythm, and
Mhm.
I'm comfortable with rhythm of the organization. That or cadence as we call it now that leads to a certain momentum and success. Okay, so that's what we try to achieve.
Yeah.
And I think the last bit. Sorry, Sanjeev, I interrupted. You were
No, no,
saying.
no, no. Carry on, please.
Sorry, the last bit I would say is that I have actually worked in really good companies. Okay, and I've had really good mentors.
Mhm.
So whether it was in RBS or TCS in my early days, whether it was SSP, whether it was all the startups and the young CEOs that I worked with, and even now in Quantium, which is in the publishing industry, which I had never worked on it before,
Mhm.
and it's a fantastic learning opportunity. So I think that really helped me. Um, I also had exposure to multiple markets. So I worked in the United States, UK. I worked all over Europe, and then most recently in the African markets. So we did a long time ago a project where uh, we said that how can we deliver. So we said that working with international teams is going to be an essential skill, and this is something we started discussing in 1999, and maybe that is still true, right? Um, but we did a thesis about delivering software across multiple cultures. Okay, and we did interviews and things like that, and that was such a great learning
Mhm.
about the kind of insights, about the kind of preferences, the kind of experiences that people have, about their aspirations and desires, and what does great look like for them, and
Mhm.
then how you converge all of that into a sort of a client partner relationship, and you define the relationship on those learnings from those surveys. Okay, so I think that was fantastic. That kind of experiences is I absolutely cherish and love.
So, Shobik, that was fantastic to learn about, all of the things that have helped you grow. And I love your emphasis on this whole learning bit, whether it's the exposure in the companies that you work with, or the books that you read, or the schooling that that all of those things are really quite interesting. Plus the global exposure. I mean, that sort of adds so much richness to everything you do. Some of these things happen, because your work takes you to different places. Some of these things are things that you have to drive yourself to. Like you said, there was peer pressure for you to read the books. I'm just wondering that, as a as a busy businessman and a business professional, has time management been a problem for you? And if so, how did you improve it?
Actually, never. And I've always believed in the myth that the myth is work-life balance, So often I get the feeling that somebody else is getting the balance. Okay. So, but I sort of compartmentalize my life. And given the fact that I'm a Capricornian and myth has it that I'm introverted, so I tend to ensure that I've got my private space and my corporate world. Okay. So my model is very simple. On weekdays, the company has my full mind share.
Mhm.
And on weekends, my family has my full mind share.
Mm.
Unless there is an emergency, in which case it's the other way around, right? So, and until the crisis disappears, so we have to fix emergencies. That is fundamentally one. Second thing is I do like taking short breaks, a lot of driving holidays to nearby places,
Excellent.
and sometimes and some long vacations. So a couple of weeks vacation time to get in touch back into with my family and friends and relatives. So it's that kind of a thing. I tend to get energized mostly by internal people, like my family, people who are close to me, and things like that.
So I'm so tempted right now to go off topic because it seems like we share a passion, which is driving away to other places.
Oh, brilliant! Yeah,
But we'll talk about that at at
indeed.
some other point in time. I'm curious about how do you discipline yourself to make sure that the week is with the business and the weekend is with the family.
I don't think it is difficult because that is what I've shared with my family, so they understand this completely.
Mhm.
And there are unless, like I said, there's an emergency or there is some urgency, there is no demand on my time on either side. And both the companies that I've worked with
Yeah.
have a good Monday to Friday week kind of a culture. So that has always worked, but it doesn't prevent you from responding to emails often, sometimes during the weekend, which is all fine. That's a part of life.
So I'd say it probably also takes a great team. So just a question related to that. When you hire people, what are the two or three qualities that you look for? I mean, I got the point about they should have the right skills and the right attitude and those things. But is there something else you look for as qualities when you hire?
Yeah. I think I fundamentally look for motivation. Okay, why do you want to work in this uh, particular industries, right? And why do you want to work in this particular company? Why is this really what you want to do? And if they can respond to that, then that is great.
Mm.
Uh, I also look for people who have worked in difficult situations, people who can manage flow dynamics, like working with different kinds of teams.
Mhm.
Um, I also ask questions at every level, whether they are a junior person or a senior person, about the decisions that they have taken and what have been the consequences.
Mhm.
Uh, and also what has been their learning journey, and then what have they learned over the past.
Mm.
My most fascinating question, and I don't often ask it unless I find the right person, is what has been their emotional journey. So if you were to chart out, on a graph, the highs and lows of your emotions
Mm.
over a period of time,
Yeah.
and that gives a very interesting insight into people.
Yeah,
Okay.
I can understand that. I'm sure nobody prepares for that question when they come to an interview.
Yeah, true.
So when they're asked that question, you can see, how they react to unusual situations, how they make this, how they structure the story, or yeah, it's a
Yeah.
very interesting. It's a very interesting way of looking at it. So that's that's again another interesting insight coming from experience. So let me just get as we head towards the end of this interview. Quick question on the economy is on a roll. I don't know where the stock market is going. It just doesn't seem to stop.
Yeah.
But in the next 12 months, what do you see as your biggest opportunities and challenges?
I think we are at a uh, inflection point
Mhm.
where the economies, the problems, the world dynamics with polarization, and now it's not really a polarization, that's a three or a four-way alignment. Okay, and all of those are, and then we have great tech, great solutions for a variety of problems.
Mhm.
Uh, that's all going to converge at some point.
Mhm.
uh, when that happens, then I think there'll be many things happening, especially in India,
Mhm.
where with the Make in India program, the entire gamut of trade agreements and relationships that we are doing, it's going to create many opportunities for companies, teams, and individuals.
Mhm.
Uh, that is my feeling. I think over the next 12 months, we are going to, at least for people of my generation, and I sort of say that sadly, but people of my generation, they have seen growth. We have
Yes.
seen massive growth. We have seen evolution of technology. We have seen evolution of business models. We have seen evolutions in learning strategies and techniques and how people absorb information and data. We have seen so many things, but I think this is yet another thing that we will be very fortunate to see and experience.
Right. Do you see a lot of turmoil because there's the geopolitical situation and there's the emerging geo-economic situation, which is not looking that great, with the war in Europe and all that. Plus all these emerging technology challenges or I would say opportunities like artificial intelligence and so on and so forth. It does look like, a lot of, I don't know whether to say uncertainty or to say opportunity or to say what, but as they say, we shall see.
Indeed, yeah, as long as we don't get into artificial stupidity, I think we should be fine.
Are there any questions, Shavik, that I should be asking you that I haven't asked yet?
No, I think you've covered the gamut. It has given me an opportunity to talk about what I have experienced. I am not the most qualified person on the planet, but I've been fortunate to surround myself with really, really great capability and great people with great insights who have become, many of whom have become friends. So, yeah, I think it was a pleasure talking to you.
I'm glad I asked that question because I got a nugget of gold from there. Right? I can't do everything alone. I need to put some great people around me to get great things done.
Oh yeah, I always surround myself with people who are better than me all the time.
Fantastic. Thank you for those insights, Shavik. It's been great to have you share your perspective with the community, and I wish you great success in the coming years.
Thank you so much. It's been an absolute pleasure talking to you, Sanjeev.
Thank you and cheers.